daughter. So if you are standing at the back, please sit down. Thank you. Hello. Can we have some order? Thank you. At the back. Thank you. Thank you. My name is Amaka, as I've said, and I'm the general's daughter. I think evidence of my dad's life is that I'm starting first. My brothers are very are gentlemen as well, so ladies first. And it's really significant of who my dad was. I wanted to, there are many things you could say about my dad, but I know that one thing I wanted to talk about 3 parts of him today. The first part is the father's love and what that means. The second part is intellect, and the third part is a different kind of man. First of all, a few years ago, I was very ill. And when you are sick, people, and I wrote this in the tribute, but that's really what I wanted to say. When you are sick, people say, oh, remember God loves you. Remember, he will never let anything happen to you. The love of God, the love of God. And for me, I didn't really understand it, But I was so ill that we had not told my dad that I was ill, what was wrong with me, So he would call, he would talk, and I couldn't really tell him what was wrong with me, And I was still trying to understand this love of God, I didn't really get it. God loves you, God loves you. What does that really mean? And then one day, my dad called and, he said, I know you can't really tell me what's going on, but remember that I love you. And no matter what, I will love you. And in that moment, I understood. I understood what it meant, for a father's love, because I had a father that, when he said he loves you, I don't know how to express it. I didn't really know how to express it because when my father said he loves you, it wasn't the love of, oh, just to say. It was the kind of, I would literally do anything for you kind of love. It was the, I would go to the end of the earth kind of love. It was, I would bend over backwards for you kind of love. And when he said that to me and he dropped the phone, it clicked to me that if my earthly father can love me like this, then that means the love of God must be a million times this, because I know how this man loves me. And then I knew everything would be all right. 2 years ago, a year ago, when I told him this, and I was very happy I told him, we were sitting in 4 Points in Sheraton, and we were talking at breakfast, and I told him that thank you for making me understand the love of God. And that's really what has kept me thus far, knowing that I've experienced that kind of love. I think the kind of love my father showed me, I want to speak to every father in this room. If you have a daughter, there is nothing like a father's love for a daughter. If you have a girl child, show that girl love in her lifetime, and she'll never go wrong. As women, we go through different phases in life as women, and the assurance of a father's love will take you very far. It will take you in the lowest of times. It will take you through the darkest of times. A father's love will reassure you when you're at your lowest of lows. And that's what my father gave me. I knew it, I understood it. And ever since we were children, there was nothing else that someone else would give to me that I knew my father had not already given to me. And because of that, it has kept me through all this. I don't know how to express it in words, but the kind of love my father showed my sister and I when we were children, when we were girls, it never made us think we needed boyfriends. which is, I don't know that's a good thing, because at some point, he said, okay, maybe you should try and look for somebody to marry you. You know, maybe I cannot marry you. Because he was so much of everything you want that you figure out, what else do I need, you know? That was how much he loved my sister and I. And I'm saying it again, if you are a father and you have a daughter, you have to make sure she knows that she's loved from when she came from. So that's my father's love. The second part is intellect. Today, my father and I, if you see us talking, we're talking about the Second World War. We're talking about history, civilization. We're talking about Nigerian politics, Nigerian military strategy. And you wouldn't know he's talking to his daughter. From when I was a child, that's how my dad talked to me. Today, I stand with men and I talk about, or I even just speak and they wonder, you know, how can a woman know so much about intelligent things like this? That was what my father instilled in my sister and I. There was no, these are the boys and this is you. He put us all on the same platter. And he encouraged me to think. He encouraged me to know that there was nothing that was above my aspiration. And I don't think it was a conscious effort. It was the issue of that you are my child and you are my daughter, and you know there's nothing you cannot do. From when I was a child, today I know so much about global civilization, and it was when I started going out that I realized that most women or young girls don't know such things. Once again, if you are a father to a girl child, talk to your daughter about football. Talk to her about boxing. Talk to her about anything. That is what is going to put her aside from just any other girl on the road. And because you are her father, it's only you that can make that difference in her life. That's what my father did to me. He made me understand that as a girl, there was no difference between me and my brothers. Yes, you are a woman, you must know, I will come out to those things, you know. Yes, you must know some things, but the sky is your limit, because you are a child of SAM and Ifeoma MOMAH. Therefore, you are going to do anything you want to do. My father, thirdly, my dad, and this is the last thing. If you are the father of a girl child, show your daughter emotion. Show her love. Not love in terms of just I love you, but show her your vulnerability. My dad, you know, I'm happy I get to speak first, because you've talked about the minister, the general, you've talked about the army man, you've talked about, you know, this great man, you know, who apparently is really great. But this was a man that if I was having, and permit me to say, my menstrual period, he would come and sit down with me. He would cry with me. He would hold my hand. It would be paining me more than it's paining me. When I had my kids, he would, if he could do a boo with me, he would have done it. That was who he was. When I was crying, he would cry with me. He would hold my hand. Even on the phone, on my birthdays, he would cry with me. If you are a father to a girl child, show your daughter that men cry, that men have emotions, that men can love, and not just love from a physical distance, but love that can hold your daughter when she's down. If you are a father to a girl child, do that for her. Don't only show them the manly man side and okay and the people thing of, no, my dad, even though he was all this, he's the kind of person that he wanted you to. He was vulnerable, he was emotional, and he showed it. And those three parts are what I would keep of him forever. Daddy, I love you. I miss you so much. I'm grateful we have the opportunity to speak about you. I promise that so far you are here, so far we are alive and we are here, we will take care of mommy and our dad. We will keep your legacy alive, not just legacy of greatness and intellect, but legacy of kindness and humanity, because that's who you really were. I love you so much. I love you. And lastly, I'm going to stop talking now because I have taken way too much time. My dad always said, I love you. My husband is not here today because of Lagos, but just lastly, I remember when I first married him, he came into the room one day and said, The father said, I love you. What do I say back to him? I said, you say I love you too. That's what we do in my house. And my father, that's the kind of person he was. Nigerian men don't say I love you. Talk less or more to their sons-in-law. And my husband was, so he called him back and said, I love you too. You know? So my dad was a great person. It's going to be difficult to sometimes move on without him, but we know that that's not what he would want. His end has come. It was time. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming out today. To many of you, my father was a friend, a futuristic thinker. To many of you, my dad was an entrepreneur, an ex-serviceman. To many of you, he was an engineer. To some of you, he was a statesman, he was a scholar. To some of you, he was a general and a gentleman. To some of you, he was a patriot. It's maybe the best president Nigeria never had, an astute professional. What was he to me? I'm going to tell you 4 things I believe the legacy and life of General Sam MOMAH taught me as an individual, the greatest lessons I learned from my father. Number 1, people have alluded to it here, was humility. You know, I like to share stories. I hope you don't mind if I push out a few today. When he was going through the challenges of the Nigerian army, as many of you here might know, there were always challenges. He was overlooked for a promotion and he weathered the storm. But as God would have it, he became the Minister of Science and Technology. And those same people who overlooked him came to beg him for contracts and jobs. Trust my dad. He wasn't a vengeful kind of person. He gave them those things that they requested for, and he never rubbed it in their face. He was humble. Number 2, he was hungry. My dad came to my medical school at the University of Nigeria, and he was throwing out words like cardiomyopathy and renal failure. My professors were like, what did your dad study? I said he's an engineer, but he likes to study other things. He was hungry for knowledge. I'll share a story I'm sure my mom wouldn't mind. My mom was about to get her master's in guidance counseling in the school she was teaching in, and somewhere or the other, the leader of her school, I wouldn't name any names, refused to pay for her study leave. My mom was at the University of Ibadan for 2 years studying for her master's in guidance counseling. Without any pay, my father said, I will pay your salary all the time you are at the University of Ibadan. I want you to get your master's in guidance counseling. He was hungry for knowledge. He sponsored all of us to advanced degrees, here, home, and abroad. He trained all his siblings. That was the kind of person my dad was. If you want to warm your way into his heart, tell him that you're going to study for a PhD or you're going to go for some further course. He just loved knowledge. Number 3, he was humble, he was hungry, but number 3, my dad was honest. If you wanted somebody to tell you the truth, talk to my dad. I always called him every Saturday and I was sure to get the truth, the bitter truth at times, the honest truth for sure. You know, I was once a medical student at the University of Nigeria. Like I said, I like to share stories, but I don't name names. I went to the guest house of the Nigerian army where my dad was staying. And as a 4th-year medical student, I saw the room at the bottom of that guest house filled with girls from my campus at the University of Nigeria, Enugu campus. I looked left, I looked right, I saw people I knew, and I said, what are you doing here at 11:30 p.m. at night? The guest house was full of military generals. I came to spend the night with my dad. I don't want to share what happened that night, but my dad said, well, all the other people do what they want, but I know what I do when I travel for these things. I stay pure, I love my wife, I maintain the sanctity of marriage. That was the kind of professional, that was the kind of honesty my dad was. Thousands of miles away from my mom, he wanted me in his bed, not some loose girl from the University of Nigeria. Sorry, UNN people. But that was a true story. The 4th thing I know about my dad was he was a homely person. He was a homebody. We never belonged to any country club. We never belonged to any, societal gatherings. We weren't at every party that people wanted to be at. You know, military men normally goes to officers' mess. Not my dad. He will come straight home. And this is what my dad told all of us when we were getting married, every single one of us. He said, marriage has no back door. So as you're going in, better get ready to shut the front door. There's no way out after this. You better be sure you're making the right decision. Because if you think you're going to get out of this, you're not getting out of this. Thank God all my siblings and I were happily married. And at this point, I want to introduce my wife to say a few words. Praise the Lord.
Good evening, everybody. And it's such a beautiful evening tonight to talk about this man. I'm not an emotional person, but Amaka has triggered us something tonight, and I'm trying to hold it back. General Momah became a father to me when I got married into this family, but I have come to see that one of the shoes he filled in was the shoe of a father to me. I remember when I started working on my doctorate degree, he never stopped asking me, how is it going? He never stopped. And if there was any point I got discouraged, I knew that he had my back. So when Amaka talked about education and Tobe talked about hungry, they are true testimonies of who he is. I don't know how much I can borrow from people tonight. They've said so many things. But I also believe strongly that there is a divine connection in the union of General Sam Momah and Mrs. Christiana Momah. There is a divine connection there. And I know that when God decided that the two of them will come into this world, he purposed for two of them specifically. I see so many things in this family as a woman married into a family that I hear people talk about, and I say, am I a married woman? People tell me stories about families and I don't see them. I come into a family where I'm welcomed in as a daughter, not a daughter-in-law. On the day he celebrated his last birthday, I remember vividly I was driving on a highway in the United States and I called him. He was on another call, but he hung up that call to pick my call. And I said to him, Daddy, happy birthday. He said, thank you, thank you. He said, this birthday has been good. I said, Daddy, you know, I want to start calling you a new name. I told him, from today, I want to call you my pop-in-love. He said, what is that? I said, that is another way of saying father-in-law, but a father-in-law that is different. He said, I like that name. And that became our name together. On that 6th of July, 2020, I renamed him. I didn't know that there was not going to be a lot of birthdays coming. But it marked a change in my relationship with him. That on that day, he stopped being my father-in-law. He became my pop-in-law. And I know that it was because of the love he shows, not just to me, but to everybody that has come his way. Tonight, I want to celebrate him. He was a man of love in every ramification. He loved from his heart. He loved even my siblings, so much so that my sister's husband asked her, is that your father-in-law or Rita's father-in-law? That's how close he was to my family. So I want to say tonight, thank you everybody for coming here to celebrate my pop-in-law. God bless you all.
Where do I start from? I don't know, but a lot has been said this evening. I would probably just start by saying that I'm speaking after my brother who's a pastor, so it's a difficult line to keep, but I'll try all the same. You see, when my father passed, we had a lot of guests coming, condolence visits, and a few things stood out. I don't know, is Martin here? Martin, he works for me. Martin, are you here? He's not here. Please go on. Two things stood out. Martin is here. Fantastic young man. He works for me. I have a small charity that saves lives. He runs the charity. So there are two things that stood out for me after my dad passed. I was in a low mood many times, and Martin, when I would go to the charity's office, I'll go there, he'll note my mood, and he'll tell me, Oga, chill. Your father lived a great life. He's a young man, but his years, he speaks ahead of his years. There's something he said to me that I'll share with us. It's very profound. He said, sir, your father lived a wonderful life. When we all die, we want to pray that we don't need to look for people to tell lies at your burial. And he stopped to me. Wonderful. First, you have to look for people. There's no one first. You have to look for them first. When you find them, you have to convince them to tell lies at your burial. Two-pronged things. And I said, look, your father was a great man. All the tributes you've heard this evening, nobody here is telling lies. They're speaking from their heart. So when he said that, he stopped him and he consoled me. Your father was a great man. When we die, we should aspire to get to that point where we don't need to shove people to come and tell lies at our burial. That's on the one side. Then during the condolence visits, I had friends come and see me, tell me, wish to console me. One of my friends who came, we shared something together. He said, Nkem, I've known you for 35 years now. And 35 years seemed just like yesterday. We were young boys in the way walking up and down. And it seemed like yesterday. I could remember the pranks, just like yesterday. He said, do you know that 35 plus years from now, it will be our kids coming together to say, sorry about your dad, sorry about your dad. Sorry. And it hit me. That's true. The same time I just passed, fast forward it, we will be the ones to be mourned. So it got me thinking, we don't have the kind of time we think we have in this world. This time is so fleeting and so fast, before you know it, you're going to be celebrated the other way around. So that's for the stories. I had written a tribute for my dad. Before I allow my lovely wife to speak, I'll just read that off the cuff, so I don't have to. It goes like this. It was written 50 days exactly after my dad passed. I had wanted to write it earlier, but I was not, but I wanted to avoid late rush, so I wrote it quite late. But the immediate period after his demise was perhaps spent coming to terms with what really was. My father had such a towering personality that one would easily think death was simply not on the cards. However, reality has gradually asserted itself, and so here we are. Where do I begin, and at which point do I end this piece? Truly, he came, he saw, and he conquered. He lived a very accomplished life and left his footprints wherever he strode. His life story was one of great intrigue, embellished with providence and reinforced by fortitude. His intellectual wit set him apart from his peers, and this will often make the difference when it mattered most. He was gracious in what our society has come to term as success, as he never allowed it to change his humanity, which at its core incorporated the ethos of simplicity and being down to earth. It will not be out of place to say that he single-handedly etched our family name into Nigeria's annals. And he did this painstakingly through deliberate acts of integrity whilst in public service, for which we remain grateful. I can testify to that. I'm sure many of my siblings can do the same. Wherever you go to and you mention the name, he opens doors for you. I can very easily imagine if it was the other way around. You mention you're so person, you say, okay, he sends another message. So I thank God for that name that we've inherited from our father. Our father during his lifetime served the Nigerian Army meritoriously in various capacities. He also served as Honorable Minister for Science and Technology and member of the Provisional Willing Council between 1995 and 1999. He was an avowed intellectual and contributed immensely to our nation's body of knowledge. He remained a strong believer in a Nigeria forged on the path of resilience, increased productivity, and unbridled enterprise. He was an embodiment of peace who lived selflessly and impacted lives across various boundaries. Until his death, he remained a bridge builder and strong pillar to many. Our consolation remains in the many legacies numbered in persons and institutions he helped nurture during his lifetime. He provided cover for so many people. He did this discreetly over the years, and we're only just discovering many now that he has transited. They, family and non-family alike, are literally coming out of the woodwork to testify to what he was doing for them up until his death. Like the proverbial eagle, Ugomba, which ironically is his traditional title, who releases its young one to fly only when the time is right, doing so out of love and the need to allow the young eagle's wings gather strength. Our Father, in his usual strategic manner, and perhaps like this eagle in this case, probably chose to leave us where he sensed we were strong enough to take care of things. Our mother, his wife, and jewel of inestimable value, most especially. His ways were often unorthodox, but he will always deliver on results. He strove for merit and excellence at all times, and derided mediocrity and tardiness. He was soft-spoken and, as default, always stood on the side of humility and simply abhorred haughtiness or arrogance. He was deeply passionate about a new Nigeria and elected to always walk his talk. He engaged with this by investing his hard-earned pension in ventures that would offer employment to Nigerians. He did this repeatedly, despite the realities and many vicissitudes in the Nigerian economy. Even we, his family, would often wonder why. Alas, that renewed confidence transformed face of a young Nigerian girl hired 2 months ago, who probably was destined for prostitution, would have lasting effects and inadvertently produce late converts in us. He made us understand that we are only as wealthy or strong as our community is. Therefore, alluding to the fact that true security stems from giving or providing and not necessarily having or accumulating. Our Father was an enigma and a sage all in one. God gifted us and the world with 77 years of an awesome experience. And for this, we're indeed eternally grateful. Adieu, Daddy. Adieu, General. Adieu, Nnewi. Adieu. Your son, Ifeoma. At this point, I'd like my wife to say a thing or two about this great man. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's a great honor I speak about Daddy, because that's what he was. He was Daddy, nothing else. Daddy was really an amazing person. And when I think of Daddy, I think of someone who spoilt me and spoilt all of us, to be honest. You know, being an adult can be a bit daunting, you know, all the responsibility of life, things to do. But once you're with Daddy, you're like a little girl all over again. That's how he treated all of us, his daughter-in-law, his daughters, his sons. He was a daddy to the very end. And even with my siblings, you know, after my father passed on about 14 years ago, he kept on reminding me that I'm your daddy. If there's any issue, make sure I know. And he showed so much concern about my siblings, what was going on in their lives, and at every point in time, they can speak more about it than I can, but he was always very concerned. And he was concerned about his grandchildren. If anything, he was always thinking, worrying about the state of the nation and the kind of nation that we're going to bequeath to his grandchildren. He was like, this wasn't the Nigeria I grew up in. I want my grandchildren to have a better nation. I want them to inherit a better Nigeria. And that was all he talked about constantly. He was so, so concerned about it. It was such an honor, to be honest. I can't lie. General Momah, once I say my name and they ask me, it's always with a smile that I respond and I say, yes, that's my father-in-law. Because he was a father indeed. A name to be proud of, a legacy to be proud of. Not one that you hide your face or, you know, at all. You go somewhere and you can walk with your head up high, knowing that you're walking with a man who was just an amazing individual in every way. Like my brother-in-law said, or my sister-in-law was saying, my sister Amaka, it was when I married in Kem that I learned that Nigerian men could say, I love you. That's our normal language in this family. You end a phone call with love you, love you, love you. And the first time I was like, this is so weird. But it was so refreshing and so warm, and truly the love was there. It wasn't just words, it wasn't just semantics, it was meant from the depth of your heart. And I dare say, if there was ever any issue between me and his son, he would always take sides with me. No doubt about it, always, always. He would always say, no, it can't be Chioma, you know. He was like that. He was, you know, just, and it's speaking of him in past tense, it still hasn't hit me, to be honest. I can't lie. Because I saw him 2 days before he passed, and I've never seen him looking more handsome in our 18 years of marriage, looking absolutely smashing and dashing like the gentleman he was. You know, looking very sharp. He had one nice crisp shirt on. And he walked with me, he saw me to the door. We spoke about his latest book, spoke about the grandchildren who he was always concerned about. And he looked absolute. I was like, Daddy, you look amazing, you look great. And he said, yes, I'm fine. So when my sister called me, when Chichi called me, I was like, what are you talking about? But that's life. That's life. Everybody is going to go at some point. Like Amaka said, God knows, but I want to just thank God for the legacy he left, for the man he was, for the honor of being loved by him, because I know he truly did love me, for being spoiled by him, for he really did spoil me. And I can't see Crystal Palace Hotel the same way, because going there, I could just go and sit down on the couch, open his fridge, play. It was just easy like that. No frills, no fuss. And I want to really just thank all of you who have been with us all this time, supported us, prayed for us, shown us love. Honestly, I know it hasn't hit us, but we will be fine. We will be fine by his grace. Thank you. Thank you.
So I'd like to underline what my wife said here, just struck a bell, as I just mentioned it. Because I saw him and I was also given the odious task of developing the stationaries that we use for the initial communications. I designed the letterhead paper and I struggled with it. I wrote there, I designed it, I said, the family of the late. As I wrote it, I stared at it, I said, oh my gosh, am I really doing this? So it took a lot of effort to get closure where that was concerned. But I want to say to us here all, who still have fathers or mothers or brothers or loved ones, don't delay in showing love to them. This is between us here. January 1st this year, I promised myself I would send my dad 20,000 MTN credit every month. He doesn't need the money, but it was something I had meant to do. But somehow, the finances were never just right. I kept procrastinating on it. 20,000 is not much money, but I just thought I'll do it next month, but I never got to do it. So please, when God gives you the unction to do that for a loved one, do it. Thank you very much.
The joy of the Lord is our strength, and we rejoice because we know that Daddy is in the better place, is resting in the bosom of the Lord. And at this very second, he just smiled at us saying, these children, you know, left to me, this should be a 1 hour thing, so let's wrap it up and go home. So that was the kind of man he was. He was very prompt on time and very timely, and didn't really believe in wasting time per se. So I will keep my tribute very short. Honey, do you want to go first? You want?
Sure.
Sure.
Good evening, everybody. Mona and I have it together, so thank you. I've been sitting down there and I don't know, all the tears that we've held back for so long have just been coming out. But thank you, everybody. So much has been said about Daddy today. I just find it so amazing that his story is consistent. Everybody has the same things to say. If you met him today, if you met him tomorrow, you met the same General Sam MOMAH. It's amazing. Amaka spoke. She's his daughter. Ada is there. But just as she spoke, that was the relationship I had with him. And It wasn't a daughter-in-law thing. You know, I was remembering many years ago, Emeka and I had a moment, you know, where maybe call it fellowship. And I think Daddy must have called shortly after, but you know, in the passion of everything, I think he felt the need to tell Daddy his story. And when Daddy called me, he says, Chichi, what's going on? He says, hey. And when I told him, you know, we talked. You know, he says, oh, Chichi, just do this, you know, but we laughed about it. By the time we got off the phone, Emeka came in and he looked at me. And he's wondering, I thought that was my dad I talked to. And then I come back and he's like, these people plotted against me. But you know, he treated me like his daughter, not his daughter-in-law. Just as he would relate to Amaka, I mean, he spoke to me with love. I've always felt like a very special girl. My dad is still around, but in Daddy, I had another daddy. 2 weeks or so before he passed, we were ill at our home. Daddy called every day, not once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times. At some point, he said to me, he said, Chichi, if I could just be sick and you guys be okay, I'll take it for you. And I said, Daddy Mbao, we're okay, we're fine. But every day he called. Few minutes after you would get off the phone, his driver would land with fruits. Mommy always sends fruits, but he would come and say, Daddy said to drop this off for you all. By the evening, he would land with food. Daddy said we should bring dinner so you people don't have to worry. That was him. And he showed so much love in those last few weeks. Little did I know that, you know, we were coming close to the end. But you know, I really want to say Daddy always celebrated love. That's one thing. When I think of Daddy, I think of love. He loved love. As I sat down to write a tribute, I looked around the house and there were just so many signs of him around our home. Over the years, every time he came to visit, he brought us a gift. It was either a plaque or something, and he would take his time. He wrote a message behind every one of them. So as I pick it up, I look behind and I see his writing. And he says, Chichi and Amy, keep it up. You're doing well, you know, but he always had a loving message for us. That's what I remember when I think of Daddy. So thank you all, everybody, for coming today. As Chama has said, it's a tough time. I think it's getting more real, but I thank God. Daddy loved his family. He loved everybody who he came in contact with. He loved Nigeria, but he loved this family. And I tell myself, Daddy could only have seen Jesus. Jesus is the only reason why he would have walked away and crossed over. So Daddy, rest on in peace. I know you're with Jesus. What a beautiful thing it is. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I just want to keep this very, very brief because of time. My name is Emeka MOMAH, and for those who kind of know me a little more intimately in many circles, I'm often called Dr. Goodman. And I write, while listening to everyone speak, I just wrote a couple of things that remind me, in particular, of this man, the original Goodman. You know, they say the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. And in his passing, I understand a little more clear where a lot of traits come from, not just me, but the rest of my siblings. Daddy was, well, let's put it this way. I would like to share some secrets with you guys about this man called GENERAL SAMUEL IFEANYICHUKWU MOMAH. Some secrets that many people know and we know, but many of you might not know. So my dad was tough physically. If you know him, he's very stout, very physically well-built man. But he hated injections. My dad hated injections. There was nothing you could do to Daddy to get him to sit for an injection. He literally bribe his way out of it. He will pay you. Many times he tried to bribe the nurses to avoid giving injection. He just couldn't handle injections. It was always an interesting thing when a man so toughly built, but he just could not handle it at all. You know, that was the kind of man he was. Very interesting. My dad, interestingly, started hawking from age 8 years old, to help support his parents in taking care of his siblings. So walking around the streets of Mina after school, he would hawk food on his head for about 2-3 hours, and most times, whatever they sold that night was usually what they used to feed on. But for a man who carries so much in his head, he was such an intellect. He was such an intellect, a brilliant man, a brilliant mind. Even to the last days of his life, he was so brilliant in his, and very articulate in his words and actions. Number 3, secret, is that he was a soldier. We all know that. And in every single way, very, very strong-willed. Very, very strong-willed. My father was extremely, very, very strong-willed. Like my wife would say, I wonder where that came from. But my dad was an excellent, are you ready for this? My father was an excellent marriage counselor. There was no couple that I know of that have entered either my parents' room or his office that ever walked into their office with marital problems and didn't walk out with a better marriage. My father was an excellent, excellent, excellent marriage counselor. That was his gift. He was so gifted in being to carry people and communicate love, exactly. That's what we heard this in love. He was a guru of love. He just preached love to. Number 4, secret. My father, I think my wife mentioned it here. For someone who was very, very disciplined, stout, very official in many arenas, my dad was an excellent gift giver. I could never understand it. I tried to mirror him. My father was an excellent gift giver. He was so thoughtful in the way he gave gifts, and very, very calculated. And you wonder, where did this man think of this? And my dad could write letters. My dad could write letters. My dad could write poetic love letters to his wife and to his children. He was so gifted. He could sit and compose letters to you to encourage you and to build you, but mostly in many ways correct as well, but in many ways to show love of a parental love, like Emeka had mentioned. I'm so glad, Emeka, you came forward. Finally here, and most of you will be shocked at this. The 5th secret of my father. My father was an excellent cook. You'll wonder, my father was an excellent cook. My father was an excellent cook. He would shame me and many women. My father started cooking again from age 8, 9 as part of the chores in their family. And the last time, I think one of my sons mentioned it in London when we came to visit him when he wasn't feeling well. And the excitement in my father's face when we walked into the house and his anxiety about the delay in us getting home was like, Amy, where are you going now? I said, Daddy, we're coming. He said, the food I cooked for you is getting cold. And the 2 weeks we spent with my dad, my children and myself and my lovely wife got to know about Grandpa's stew. Grandpa's red sauce. What greater legacy could there be? That your grandchildren and myself, my humble self, and my darling wife will have a man at that age, still recovering, will enter the kitchen because he had difficulty sleeping most nights, and start preparing food. One particular incident happened where my wife jumped up at night and was like, what's happening? That she's smelling food. Only for her to go into the kitchen and see my dad roasting some fish. I said, Daddy, what's going on? He said, I'm cooking for you people now. I can't sleep. That was the kind of man he was. A very giving man. A very giving man. So I celebrate not only a father or a general or a fantastic scholar. I celebrate a good man in every ramification. And I again want to say thank you all for coming. Thank you for your love. Thank you most importantly for the prayers. We need more of it. Thank you for all you've done for us, and God bless you. There's more ahead, and please just stick around. We'll be done very shortly. Thank you very much.
give to us thy grace to seek thee, O Lord. Seek thee, O Lord. Alleluia. 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 Thank you. For me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. As the skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbows, so pretty in the skies, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're real saying, I love you. I hear babies cry. They'll learn much more. I watch them grow. Than I ever know, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful
It will surprise most of us to see one black man standing that does not look like a Nigerian. We are all gathered here to celebrate the great man general in the person of General Samuel Ifeanyichukwu MOMAH. I've been hearing people mentioning late. To the best of my ability up to now, I don't think he's late. Because time has gone, let me just be brief about it. I have served General SAM MOMAH for the past 45 years. If you see me talking, you just have to see that Emeka is the last person to speak, and Giwa has come, which means I am his first child. Many people have spoken, and I believe and hope I'm going to be the last person. Am I right? No. I just want to share a secret between myself and General MOMAH. Madam is here. She just knows us as soldiers. General MOMAH is my boss. But there are some links between myself and him that nobody knows. For the past many years, I do travel with General MOMAH. That's the secret. Madam will not even know. Most of the time when we travel somewhere, he will check into a room, a hotel room. Instead of myself being in a car, he will just say, let's go. I doubt if Madam knows about this. We'll be in the same room with him till daybreak. Myself standing here, people are talking about telling people you must do this, you must do this, you must do this. General MOMAH never tells me anything. Rather, he teaches me what life is all about. It's unfortunate that I'm asked to say some tribute about him. Already time is not in our favor. Let me just say small. Since they said I should say something, tribute, which I don't really believe he is late. Well, tribute to an uncommon boss/mentor. To begin describing my dearest one and only boss/mentor for the past 45 years, in the past tense, is outright unfairness to a truly great man general who merely answered to go home called. To say that my dearest boss was the best while admitting that I have had no other would appear ridiculous. But if you knew my boss, you should have realized that it is possible to have experience with but one only, and yet be able to conclude with finality that this one is the best there can be. My boss was the exception to the rules of comparison, where you needed two multiples before conclusion can be drawn. My boss embodied all the human qualities God designed man to possess and portray in their finest and purest forms. When you are talking about that, you have honesty, humility, integrity, intelligence, kindness, generosity, calmness, focus, empathy, soft-spokenness, and of course, simplicity. With class, all discover that their highest definitions and expression could all dwell in one human body. That's my boss. Adio.
Before I start, and I won't bore you, I'll make my statement very short, or as short as possible. In life, I have enjoyed the privilege of associating with my uncle and daddy And in death, I thank God that that privilege has continued. And that privilege has led the organizers of the evening in asking me or permitting me to speak a word or two concerning my uncle and daddy. General SAMUEL Nnewi was an uncle to me by virtue of where we come from and blood, but was my daddy because of what both of us went through together in life. General SAMUEL, every inch of the way in my life featured. And a typical example was when I was in University of Jos. I am not one of those very brilliant young men, so I couldn't score high enough mark in JAM to do law. Eventually, I gained admission to do political science. And when I had done political science for 2 years, I needed to change course to law. And I had just applied. It wasn't something that was normal, but I applied and I believed that it would work. And one morning, I was going for my lecture, and I saw Colonel SAM IFEANYICHUKWU MOMAH in the campus, University of Jos. And I rushed out and said, that's my uncle, that's my uncle. He was in uniform, he was a colonel then. And I went to him, oh, Emeka, are you here? I said, I'm here. Uncle, what are you doing here? He said he was a member of the governing council of the university. I said, okay. And then I said, Uncle, I have something to tell you. He said, Emeka, and money. I said, Uncle, it's not about money. You know, I have always wanted to be a lawyer. He said, yes. I said, but I'm doing political science here. He said, yes. And my dad insists that I finish political science before doing law so that I will appreciate law better. But that is not in my calendar. I need to change to law. The rest is history. I changed to law, I finished, and today I'm a senior advocate of Nigeria. By the way, my name is Emeka Etiaba. Myself and my uncle stroke daddy had quite a lot in common, and we were extremely close. We confided in one another very much. But why was that possible, and how was that possible? It was possible not only because both of us decided to confide in ourselves, but because my uncle, my daddy, was married to a lady who encouraged that relationship. Her daddy Arama, who is seated here, Chief Mrs. Christine Ifeoma MOMAH. It's good to say these things when one is alive. It won't profit me to say that the day she will lie, assuming she will go before me. She was a wonderful, wonderful mommy, and she had always been a wonderful mommy. I remember when my uncle was a minister, I was one of those few people that were extremely close to him. No matter the meeting he had as a minister, I would come straight, I will not wait, I'll go in, I'll discuss with him, and I'll leave. I never used to stay in a hotel. I'll come in, and then I'll go to Minister's Hill. My big auntie here will say, Emeka, your room is ready for you. And in the night, my uncle and daddy will go to sleep. And my big mommy here, auntie, will come to my room and tell me, Emeka, you know who your uncle is? He cannot hurt a fly. If you leave him, nothing will come to you. Go to his office tomorrow morning, disturb him. If you leave him, he will tell you there's nothing in science and tech. Make sure you go tomorrow and disturb him. You will get something. That's the woman that is seated here. And that relationship continued till death. I became so fond of him that I will always call him, I'll always talk with him. And when I relocated here from Lagos with my wife, of course, once in a while we'll go to see them. And he's a man that will never bother you with anything, any request. So most times, if he wanted to see me, he will call me. And he will not say, Emeka, come and see me. He will say, Emeka, are you in town? And once he says, Emeka, are you in town? I know he's missing me. And I'll say, yes, I'm in town. Do you want me to come? He said, you can come in. I'll be in the office tomorrow. And I'll come. And we talk. That was the relationship. And then we continued, and we had so much to talk about. Nothing, there was no information he had that he did not share with me, and he always sought my opinion, and my opinions were always available to him. Sometime last year, I came to see him in the office, and when we finished our normal talk, he was seeing me off to the car, because he will always see you off, or at least he normally will see me off. And as I moved on, he tapped me. He was at my back, he tapped me, and I turned. He said, Emeka, I won't tell you guys the rest, but he extracted a promise from me. And that promise, like I said in my tribute, I intend to live and achieve it. I gave him a promise. And that thing wasn't by accident. He knew he was going, and he needed me to get committed to him on something. And I committed myself to that, happily. Sometime in June, early June this year, I was with my wife, Joy. She's at the back. She wouldn't want to come and stand here. Sometime in June this year, my wife said to me, we were just one evening, he said, your passion for Uncle is too much. And I said, yes. He said, don't you think that you should do something very good? I said, what is that thing? He said, it would be nice if you collected his account number so that every month you pay in something. I said to her, this is ingenious. I love it. And the next day, I went to see Uncle, who was also my daddy. And I said to him, Uncle, I want to share a secret with you. And okay, my darling is coming with Nnewi, our son. So I said, I want to share a secret with you. And he said, Emeka, what is the secret? I said, please give me your account number. Don't tell anybody. I want to be paying in, I told him the figure. As I pay salaries, I want to pay in that much. And my uncle said, oh, Emeka, that's very thoughtful of you. That's my wife, Joy, and Nnewi Chukwu. Nnewi Chukwu is an answered prayer, Uncle's answered prayer. My uncle prayed, challenged God for 14 years. And in our 15th year of marriage, this young man came. And the day we dedicated him, he was in Lagos. In fact, the picture is somewhere, you know. He carried him, he was so happy. But that's by the way. So he gave me his account number. And from that June, we actually meant to start paying that salary. We paid that of June, and it led us to July. Unfortunately, he couldn't take his second month salary, and he passed on. But come and see the joy that he expressed, just because we were giving him something that ordinarily would mean nothing to a man like him. But he knew that that was a gesture that was born out of love. So we thank God for his life. But why did I decide to share this openly? Because something happened 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, a cousin of mine, Sister Ngozi, called me and she said to me, these uniforms that you guys are sharing, I don't have any. I want to wear uniform for Uncle. I said, no problem, we'll get you a uniform. He said he needs to wear it for this man. That this man kept paying the mother salary until the mother died. The mother was his cousin, and General Mama would collect his salary, and then he would start paying out money. You see, the good thing about life in giving is not when you give to people who are comfortable. It is when you give to those who need the money. And this particular auntie of mine was in penury. I never knew that General Mama was paying her salary every month. And look at how God turned it. That he got to a point where some other person decided that this man is deserving of this. That is a lesson for life. That is a lesson for life. I will not delay us so much, but I'm here to talk about a man I know too well. A humane man, a family man, a man who loved God. You can see the children come out here to testify. Any of them can conveniently be a pastor of a church. And it is because of the influence of the parents. That is the truth. The man loved God. Above all, he loved his world. General Mama wrote 11 books. too had to do with this world. He loved Nigeria. 9 out of 11 were books on Nigeria. He had his regrets before he died. This Nigeria of today is not that Nigeria he dreamt about. And he was ready to talk. A man that ordinarily will not talk was ready to talk about what were going wrong in Nigeria. I will not bore us because whatever I have to say, every other person has said. But I can tell you that it was not, he knew that the time was up. He knew the time was up. And as the angels have beckoned on him and have said to him, welcome, we on this side are saying to him, goodbye. In Igbo land we say, Jei Jeri Nkoma. Okay, Jei Jeri Nkoma, in Jesus' name.
He was General's son, the closest of all the Etiabas. He impacted the most on him. I speak for the BMC Etiaba family, for this family was General Sam MOMAH's family. And that your Mama is with us this evening via the Zoom platform. And I bring you and the audience good tidings from her. We've had a lot of speeches, tributes tonight, and you begin to wonder, have we been speaking about a flawless man? Didn't he have any flaws? Was he not human? How could somebody be described consistently by every speaker? And sitting down before coming up here, I was wondering, what was I going to say? Why can't I put a little pin and see if I can lance the balloon? If he had any flaws at all, Adaderama will know. But I stand here before you this evening to tell you that I knew him, and to tell you that if I knew any flaws, I'll tell you. I'm glad this evening we have Ferdinand Agu moderating this night of tributes. Why him? Because Ferdinand knew that as chairman of Enugu Sports Club, I started a night of tributes to honor great men and women. He attended a few. He knows what these nights are all about. Not just to come and eulogize and praise the dead, but to let you know that they lived their life, sometimes with flaws. SAM MOMAH, CFR, lived a flawless life. That I can tell you. You've heard it from speaker after speaker after speaker. But if you knew him, you will know that there wouldn't have been an Ugomba Nnewi being described in superlative terms tonight if it wasn't for a certain strong woman from Abagana. A woman who could hold her own from Abagana. A woman with courage, with poise, with intellect, confidence, and so much love, respect, and reverence for the great late Sam MOMAH. She never described him in any way, but in words that will let you know that she just didn't love him. She just didn't respect him, but that she also revered him. And I've always admired and watched them. Something that hasn't come out tonight, let me bring it out now. He was in Fed, If you listen to all the words, it was all inferred. General Sam MOMAH was a humble man, very humble man. I can't remember, except if I missed it, hearing anybody talk about his humility. But I'll tell you something else. Oh, Kem did. I'll tell you something else about Sam MOMAH. His selflessness was brought to the fore tonight. But what has not come out tonight is that Sam MOMAH was not a materialistic human being alive. He never attached any importance to materialism. It didn't come out tonight. You had an image of him, a general. Yes, he owned ABC properties. But he never attached any importance to wealth. He could have acquired a lot more. He was not corrupt. I can tell you that. He was not corrupt. His children may not know, or if they knew, they may not tell you, they may not say so. It's not for them to say so. I can tell you that the man I knew was not corrupt, and I was close enough to know. In fact, I stand to be corrected. I doubt, please correct me, that he even ever owned a brand new car bought by himself, personal car. Did he buy a brand new car? I can't remember that. I don't think he did. You know what it means to go to a garage and pay and drive out in a brand new car? I don't think he ever had that pleasure in life. It wasn't important to him. He had vehicles. They were all used vehicles. He took care of his vehicles. He loved his vehicles. Anything around Sam MOMAH was loved. If you listen to his family, you'll hear stories, different aspects of love manifesting. He loved us as much as he loved his family, his immediate family. We lost our father in 1987. Our father was Sam MOMAH, not just uncle or big brother, but also his own father after he lost his dad. You know what happened after 1987? His gaze never left any of us. I was in England. He kept asking after me from time to time. He took Emeka under his wings. That was why he was right, Emeka spoke. The Emeka Etiaba you see today is a product of Sam MOMAH. Take it to the bank any day. I said so. When Amaka spoke, Amaka, your father spoke to me about yourself and Ada on 2 occasions in England. He was so worried about his daughters, for his daughters. A lot of that love you were crying about, you experienced, were as a result of his anxiety, as a result of his insecurity for you girls. He was worried for you and worried about you. Of course, those worries translated to the extra love you felt from him, and quite rightly so. He was an exceptional human being. We will never see his like again. And as I round up my tribute tonight, I'll say to Gomba Nnewi, I know today you're seated in one of the many mansions of our Father in heaven. And I know that there, that you will meet a late great man, Emeka Etiaba. Please tell him for us that we've all done well, that you looked after us in life, and that we're so grateful for what you did. There, my Lord, thank you.
Good evening. I'm highly privileged to be part of this epoch-making occasion. So much has been said about this great man. And before I came here, I was asking myself, how do you pay tribute to somebody who changed your life? General MOMAH became the Honorable Minister of Science and Technology. At the time, I was the Deputy Chief Executive Officer of the National Research Institute for Chemical Technology in Zaria. 2 years after he came in, my immediate boss retired. And God used General MOMAH to get approval from the president to appoint me the Chief Executive Officer. And that singular action changed my life. It changed my life, and later brought me much closer to General MOMAH. And I was going to his office to report the activities of the minister of my agency. And this closeness became much more deeper and more personal. And just as people had narrated his life, his character, every time I visited him, he would ask about the welfare of the agency. And we had a lot of things in common because he was an engineer, and he loved all the research activities in my agency. So every time he would ask me about it, especially the manufacturing of all of the activities we were doing, the production of organic fertilizer from neem seeds. He was so passionate about it. Then later, I became much closer. When he retired and became a private person, I was going to his house, his office. I became very close with the family. Unfortunately, the immediate children of his did not know me. It was only the wife. So we related so much, so closely that, in fact, the wife, our dear mother, became a godmother to my child. So it was so hurtful to me, so painful to me to learn about his passing away. But throughout the time, I was always close to him, knowing all that he was reading, his scholarship, and all the things he was doing. And we became so close. And I want to thank God for his life. I want to thank Mommy for what he showed to him, the love he showed to him. And I pray that as we remember him, as we share his memories, his life, God will give him an eternal rest. In Jesus' name.
Literacy 50 million Nigerians between the ages of 15 and 24, 50 million are considered illiterate. In a country of 200 million, 1/4 of the country, more than 1/4 of the country. Above the age of 65, it's about a 29% literacy rate. The national literacy rate is about 62%. The SAM MOMAH Foundation wants to bridge that gap. As you came in today, you saw an envelope on your chair. That envelope has a card in it. We want you to look at that envelope and support the SAM MOMAH Foundation. We're going to do this with you or without you because we believe the greatest legacy we can leave for our Father are not the tears, are not the gifts of love. We appreciate that. But the true revolution of reading that brings about increased educational quotient in the individual that makes him a sustainable individual in the polity. That is what we need in Nigeria today. Every educated country in the world is a developed country. Every literate country in the world is a developed country. We can go till the cows come home and talk about democracy, but education is the buttress. Like somebody said, my dad said, technology is power. In his last book, he said, technology is the inexhaustible oil well that will never run dry. We have oil wells that will run dry by 2030, when the whole world will not want Nigeria's oil, and the only thing they want are our brains. Where will the Nigerian young individual compete when they have a 62% literacy rate? How are we going to achieve what we want to achieve? A reading revolution. We want to do this by building reading rooms. As a professor in the United States, you have rooms that are sectioned in the library for students who want to read and have discussions. They have whiteboards, they have padded walls, and they can have discussions and read without any distraction. We want to organize reading competitions across the nation. We want to equip libraries across every state in Nigeria. That is what the SAM MOMAH Foundation is going to do, with or without you. Last but not the least, we're going to buy books that are going to be used to train the next generation of leaders. If you want a leader, you better be a reader. If you want an earner, you better be a learner. If you want to stop mediocrity, you have to start mental prowess. I want you to join us on this journey to a reading revolution with the SAM MOMAH Foundation by filling out that card in that envelope and dropping it in the basket under the chairmanship of Adabiorama Abagana, Chief Ifeoma MOMAH. We are going to start a reading revolution, and we are glad you are going to be part of it. We know you will be part of it, because the next generation will not be a wasted generation. The next generation will be leaders because they are readers. Thank you, and God bless you.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to say a very big thank you for your attention, your presence here. It means a whole lot to us as we try and endear the legacy of our late departed father. The SAM MOMAH Foundation, I believe, is really what he stood for, that encompasses the generosity of who he was. A human person who believed in giving a lot. But as you're giving to us this evening with your time, I just want to also believe that the Lord that brought you here will get you guys safely, and will orchestrate our meetings in many arenas. Please, there are things outside there, the book of tributes and a little gift pack. Please feel free to grab one on the way out. And if you have any more information regarding the SAM MOMAH Foundation, please ask the ushers outside, and we'll gladly pass on the additional information to you. Once again, thank you for your time, thank you for your presence, thank you for your prayers, and I believe that we shall meet again in many more or case of more celebratory occasions. Thank you very much and have a good night.